And hey, everybody, welcome to the Blue Ridge Adventures Guild. My name is Dustin Bays, and I'm joined here today with Maddie Fuller. You can say hey, Maddie.
Hey!
Nathan Willett.
Hey!
And Dr. Andy Rourke.
Hey!
Fantastic. All right, so if you have been listening to the Blue Ridge Adventurers Guild for 9 episodes, we are finally doing a session 0 to explain our world, to explain our premise, and finally describe our characters so you can actually know what they look like, and it's not just some whatever you want sort of thing. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to our DM, Andy Rourke, to explain this amazing world that he's created.
I just want to say that if you're imagining something that's much cooler than what we explain, you can just stick with it. You don't have to change to what we laid down. If you got something really, really awesome going on, you just roll with it.
Agreed.
Headcanon is canon.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, if you say so. All right, guys. Hey, I'm Andy Rourke. I am a veterinarian, and I am the dungeon master for this group. We are doing something a little bit different, as you probably noticed in the first couple episodes. The idea here is that this campaign takes place in a world where there are an infinite number of realities. The idea being is based on a science fiction book. I don't want to say what book it is because this would ruin the ending if you knew what the book was. And so I hope you stumble upon the book and don't know that it's the book and then read it and go, wow, this is the book he was talking about. It's amazing. And in this book, every time someone makes a decision, it splits reality into 2 different realities. So there's like one reality where you chose door A, and there's another reality where you chose door B. And so with all the people making all the decisions, realities just split and split and split and split and split. And that's what's going on in this world. In this world, there are multiple realities that have broken off from each other over time because of different decisions or different instances or things that happened or magical phenomena or just basic mundane decisions. And these realities split and split and split and split and split. And we all live in a reality, and it's separated from the other realities by what we call veils. So there are veils that divide one reality from the next. The realities sort of drift around and they move around, and sometimes they bump up against each other, and sometimes 2 are side by side, and then they kind of drift away. It is possible to punch holes between these veils. There are people and entities out there that do move between the realities. There are powerful beings that can see multiple realities. There are, we've already met the Seekers, which is a group that is searching for a powerful deity that has been confined to one reality, and they're trying to make their way to find the one called Umbrazul, who they're searching for. So those are sort of some of the travelers that you see moving between realities. And when we started off, I started to think about what these guys are going to be up against. It's big. It's a big deal, and it's a big problem. And I thought, if you had a problem this big, there's no way that one single group of people would be the entire solution to the whole thing. You would have to have multiple groups working and doing different things in different ways. And they don't have to know each other. They can have different motivations. They can have different desires. They can have different people supporting them. They can have different people working against them. But overall, when you start talking about something as big as multiple realities and problems that stretch across realities, it just makes sense to have more than one party kind of off doing their own thing. And I think it's also going to be vital to let us explore this sprawling, vast universe. And so that's the world that we play in, and that's why we started off with 3 different parties.
Now, Andy, can you explain a little bit just about the setting that we've created? This is your first time listening. The world that we're in, the realm, I guess, the reality that we're living in currently is a mystical kind of Blue Ridge Mountains area. Andy, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
We talked about the Blue Ridge Adventures Guild. So we record here in Greenville, South Carolina. So we are in the Blue Ridge Mountains, or at the base of the Blue Ridge Mountains. The Blue Ridge Mountains, serve as, in this story, a linchpin. It's where a couple of the realities sort of pinch together. You can see, because of some other things that will come to light later on, the veils here have been thinned out, and this seems to be an attractive place for people who are interested in trying to punch through the veils and move between realities. And so we've got a lot of things that are going on and happening here, and it's kind of fun because one of the realities is our own reality, and we can use local flavor and talk about our world and what's happening here in the upstate, which is what we call the area around Greenville, South Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina. And you see some overlap in that. So a lot of people have already picked up that the town of Greenville and the town of Verde are the same town, just in different realities. And we've got some people heading up to the town of Cinder, which is the town of Asheville in our reality. And again, there's a lot of overlap there. So it's actually really great. It's people say, well, where's the map of this world? It's Google Maps. And that's really fun. We look at we talked about Table Rock has come up a couple of times, and that's Table Rock in the upstate as well. And as we cross over into other realities, it may be called Table Rock, it may not be. It just depends on kind of what's happened in that reality in the past. So we've just started here with something that is true and real for us, all of our players, and for me. And we lay the different sort of fantasy campaigns on top of it, and it lets us actually use the real world, an area that we know and we love and that has a distinct flavor to it, and then still bring in some mythical and magical things that are really exciting.
And I think I can easily speak for everyone, or they can just speak for themselves, that it's a lot of fun playing in this world, and I have had a blast kind of just peeling back the layers and everything that you've created. Specifically, I don't want to get into specifics because I don't want to give anything away for the story, but it's been fun seeing all these different things that you have turned into places that I've been, that all of a sudden now I get to go there again and there's magic. I want to get into talking about our characters, because if you've been listening to our show before, we don't do a great job describing our characters in episode 1, which is why we're making this right now. So I want to talk about those characters, what they look like, and our different relationships and stuff. So we're going to go in show order, and we're going to start with the Horde party. Since I got the mic, I'll go ahead and start with the Horde. How the Horde works is the Horde is a band of mercenaries, and they work together. However, I think it's safe to say that we're not friends. We know each other. We've worked together, acquaintances at best. And they operate kind of out of the town of Cinder, out of a local kind of mercenary bar-esque thing, very Deadpool-esque, or I don't know if you guys have other examples of pop culture that this would be similar to.
One of the examples I was kind of using earlier was
Goblin Slayer.
Goblin Slayer or Fairy Tale. Those are two anime references for all of our fun fans.
Our weebs.
Yeah. So my character that I play is a character named Sphere, who is a deep gnome, and his name Sphere is actually just a shortened name of his race, which is the deep gnomes are known as Sphere Fleblin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's what it looks like on paper. And since he grew up alone in the Underdark, just kind of by himself, he was just always called by what he was. So his name's Sphere. He's he's small. He gets confused for a goblin a lot. So people call him Goblin. He used to correct them pretty frequently, and then he just stopped because at a certain point it didn't matter, because they saw him as a goblin, they treated him like a goblin, and no matter what he said, he was just a goblin. But in response to that, he started wearing a lot of face coverings and started wearing his body a lot. So if you are a Zelda fan and are familiar with the character Sheik, it's very much kind of like that garb, face coverings. If you're a Critical Role fan and you know Sam Riegel's character in his second campaign, where they wear a mask all the time over the goblin character's face, very much similar to that, coverings a lot of his body. He is a monk, and right now we're level 1, so he doesn't have like a lot of special abilities, but he's like very punch boy, dark skin, lots of piercings in his ears that even though he's just a gnome, he does have, the deep gnomes do have bigger ears, so he has piercings going up and down his ears. And yeah, he's kind of like a little grungy voice, kind of talks like this, like I've been smoking for 50 years sort of thing. Yeah, I'm going to pass the mic off to somebody else. Talk about their horde character.
I'll go. So my character is Amari. She is a high elf, pretentious bitch. That had her, what's that phrase when someone, she had her humbling moment. She was at the Temple of Anubis. If you don't already know, she's a cleric. But she was at the Temple of Anubis and did some naughty things and got kicked out, but it wasn't her fault. Anubis told her to do it. Or that's what she says. She is typical high elf stature, very, very thin, but she has very fiery red hair, which is kind of uncharacteristic for a high elf. She's super pale, typical redhead, but she likes to wear a bunch of baggy clothes, but underneath all of her baggy clothes are her temple robes from the Temple of Anubis for whenever they let her back in when they realized that they made a mistake. She was just doing the Lord's work by killing sick people who were gonna die anyway that came to the temple for help. Because the thing with Amari, and she overshares this to anybody who would ask, she thinks that Anubis is in love with her. And the only time she really gets to talk to him is when she kills someone. After all, she is a grave cleric, and Anubis is a person who reveres death, and so she really liked her conversations with him and wanted to continue them further because she really thought they had a nice thing going, and maybe she'd be like a chosen one or something, even though that doesn't exist. And so yeah, when people would come to the temple for healing, if they were just, super sick, she'd usher them along into the afterlife, but a little bit early, so she could have a date with her little boyfriend. But people caught on, and they were like, "You're a murderer," and she was like, "No, I'm not. I'm just talking. It's no big deal." And they were like, "No, you're a murderer. Get out of here." So she got kicked out, but then she realized, I can probably get in a line of work where I can kill people and talk to my boyfriend. So she became a mercenary, and it all worked out from there. Now that she's not with the temple, her connection is kind of a little bit fuzzy. She'll get a couple of words in here or there, but that's enough, right? Like, just the bare minimum of attention is all she needs to continue her delusions. Anyway, next.
I play Scarf. Scarf is what's called a shifter. I kind of picture, I don't know how well this reference will go out there, but kind of Darius from Full Metal Alchemist, but a little bit hairier in the face. Just like a big, hairy dude with a lot of facial hair that kind of sticks out into whiskers. His hair's long and slicked back. He's got hair all down his arms. They're not really clear. It's in the Eberron guide. I think shifters are kind of like, they're not lycanthropes, but it's like if a bunch of lycanthropes in the past got together and had a society, and over time they kept having kids. It's kind of like it's a somewhat human animal hybrid. Scarf, he was raised as a family, or he wasn't raised as a family. That'd be weird. He was raised in a family of kind of petty crime, like small town bank robbers, very like Western cowboy style robbery, big family, a lot of kids that all kind of committed crimes. And he was the runt of the litter when he was young. And so he kept kind of getting left behind a lot. And eventually, after like years and years of putting up with their abuse and they're just talking down to him, he left to make it on his own. And his whole goal was to provide or to prove himself as a great warrior. And over time, he kept growing, even kind of past where most of his brothers and sisters would have stopped. So at this point, he's a much larger shifter. He's a big dude. He's he's a paladin. I guess I should have said that. So he's based on hitting stuff with his sword really hard, and I think I'm going with the path of conquest, also to kind of keep that intimidation, being the scariest, toughest guy in the battlefield. That's what he's going for when he's in fights. But he's also got a lot of just kind of dumb dog energy, where he's very loyal to his group, even though they wouldn't call him a friend. But
no, not at all.
Not at all.
But I do think Scarf he's very happy to be. He's still a pack animal, at heart, and he likes just being a part of the group. So when he's going up against people, I think he gets a bit more aggressive. But when he's with people who he knows and considers a new family, despite the whole mercenary hard background, he's still kind of a softie at heart. But
that almost makes me feel bad.
Oh yeah, but I mean, he still would kill innocent people for money.
Yeah. I like how he left his family because they were abusive to him, and then he just like follows around Sphere and Amari because they're so nice to him.
Well, imagine how much worse his family is.
Oh yeah, I was right. At least we don't bite you, I guess.
Yeah. I also I feel like his family, I keep going back in my head to the movie Lawless, and just that kind of like moonshining group, living in the woods, like tough hillbilly vibes. That's Scarf.
So that's the party that we have in episode 1. And if this is your first time listening to the Blue Ridge Adventurers Guild, like we've said a couple times before, we have multiple parties. So an almost direct contrast to that is the party that you're going to see in episode 2, which we have affectionately nicknamed the Normies. So I don't know how. So with these characters, they're very, very close. So I figured we'd kind of just kind of smorgasbord how we're talking about our characters, because they're different characters, but they're really all the same person, I feel like.
Well, it's like when you watch Jersey Shore. There's like 4 different dudes there, but are they the different dudes?
yeah, totally. I feel like watching Jersey Shore is very accurate to the way we've been portraying these characters.
Well, yeah, to get into character, I actually did watch the top moments of Jersey Shore season 1 before recording.
I like to think that the Normies are different shades of fuckboys.
Ooh.
I think that's a great way of putting it.
Especially with my character, Roy, who used to be a hipster back in like the 20-teens and grew out of that. And instead of being obsessed with fixed gear bikes, he became obsessed with the bikes at the gym. And like obsessively taking care of himself. He just that typical guy that's like always going like this in the mirror when like he passes one. He's like checking like what, like just all kinds of fuckboyness.
Yeah,
he's the conglomerate of every douchebag I've ever met in a loving way.
Right. Yeah. No offense taken. Yeah. My character Bert is very much so. Bert. All of our characters in some way are from Massachusetts, right? We're all attempting some sort of Boston accent when we do the Normies.
It's really bad.
For my family members that live in Boston, I'm sorry.
I think they're just New England in general.
Yeah, New England. I think that's fair.
Yeah,
because I think I'm more like, well, I guess New York's not technically New England, but I think I'm more of a New York. I'm pretty sure I state that he's from New York. Jay Lachey.
I remember you saying that.
That would make sense. Yeah, that area. My character, Bert, is very much. I didn't mean for it to be this way, but everyone tells me that my character Bert is based off of my cousin. So for everyone else listening to this, he's very much, I would say, family driven, loyal to his kind of tribe, right? Bert will do anything and everything to protect his family, right? And family in the term of not just the blood relatives he have, but his chosen family as well, which becomes the normie party after we all coincidentally meet in Vegas randomly and then all just show up.
Vegas, baby.
Yeah, you know. And then we all just show up in Greenville.
That's right.
Yeah, we just show up in Greenville at Roy's house unexpectedly, randomly. Be like,
And on the same day.
yeah, all in the same day. Not coordinated, not communicated. Just we all moved to Greenville and start chilling with Roy. And
he was totally okay with it.
and our other homie John Balvier, which is which is an NPC and not our third party member, which is Nate's character,
Who was his name is John, but for the sake of the group, he goes by Jay because he understands John's doing good things out there. So Jay's able to step his name down a little bit because I think the way I always picture Jay, he's gonna be he's like your typical. He's your fun, outgoing, boisterous kind of party guy, but is also kind of a gym jock. He was in track and field in high school, but he did it for the Letterman, and he mostly like did it for the girls. And he'd do his sports and he'd do well at them. He would also drink under the bleachers after he ran his race or he threw his stuff.
Yeah.
He's always. And now I think that's what he was when he moved to Greenville. He doesn't really have a degree or anything, so he's just started getting a job as bartending. He does well at it. He's also, I think he's a good listener because of his job, and he's learned and he's good at his job because he's a good listener kind of thing. He is also very family oriented. He's got kind of that more like Italian vibe to him, and I don't know how often it's been brought up originally, but he did actually have a blog where he would make monthly lasagna posts. So every month it's called it's Lasagna Lad. He just that was kind of like his side project, his baby. He loved trying to figure out different lasagna recipes and posting new stuff for his followers. Just spending time with his people that he cares about. He's in for a good time. He wants everyone to like always be happy. And he wants everything to kind of just be look on the bright side, which obviously there's going to be some troubles and struggles coming up with being, because otherwise it wouldn't be much of a D&D adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I want to point out, if you notice, as we're talking about our normie characters, none of us have mentioned a class. And if you're listening to the first time, what we've done with the normie characters is we actually started out where we just designed these characters and we didn't pick a class. And throughout the first couple of normie episodes, I would say probably by the episode 3, we narratively discovered the normies class. So we actually started out with these as kind of a level 0, very much NPC kind of stats. So in episode 2, when you finally get to the normies, understand if you're one of those D&D guys and you know what we're talking about by all these stats and classes and stuff, realize that our characters, when we approached that episode, had virtually no modifiers. We had no abilities whatsoever except just kind of what an everyday normal person would have.
Yeah, we were using a commoner stat block. So they were whatever the D&D commoners would be. And then they just had, they had no armor. So there was no armor bonus to them or anything. They were literally commoners going to a wedding and until they sort of got sucked into what we were doing.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes the normies really fun to play and a super unique playing experience for me, because we started out normal, and as we were playing, Andy decided what class they were going to be, and I think that was really fun because he placed me in something I've never played before. Yeah. So I was like, oh shit, I gotta learn.
Well, I wanted the normie party to be distinctly different from the other parties, and so it was the only one that wasn't set. And so I wanted to push more towards having a full caster. I that was a neat way to sort of start to give ideas that there are patrons, there are other entities or beings that are watching what's going on, and they have a vested interest in things that are starting to shape up that are well beyond the comprehension of our characters. But in the larger world, there are forces at play, and there are affected parties who are trying to influence what is happening. And I just think that that's a cool narrative idea. And then it also let us go ahead and develop classes as we moved along. So as the normies start to pick up some skills, I think someone might ask, like, well, why did this happen? Or why is this person able to tap into this power? And the answer, I think, that comes out of all of this is these are desperate times and there are desperate measures, and people are taking shortcuts that otherwise would not be available because of larger events that are happening. And so I just thought it was a fun way of things start going down. There are large-scale events at play. There's a patron. There's someone who is fueling these powers and these opportunities for the normies. But are they doing it because they want to help? Do they have their own agenda? Of course they do. What we assume that their agenda is good, but maybe it's not. And those are fun questions to ask, and they're going to be fun questions to answer.
So basically, the normie party is the least normie.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was funny just trying to come up with a name for them because, what do you call people? What do you call the us? The us group is like, I don't know, the here plane?
Well, I always thought it was kind of funny because I said it kind of glib at one point when we were like trying to try it out. Because every time I like meet someone who's like, oh yeah, do you watch movies? And they're like, no. I'm like, ugh, normies.
I think I recently found out like normie was a term that like neckbeards use for people and stuff.
Oh no.
They stole it from me.
No, we're taking it and making it our own.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Hashtag free the normies.
That's going to bring us to our final party, last but definitely not least. My gut is to say that this is my favorite party, and I want to say that Boot's my favorite character, but I always say that, and then we start playing, and I'm like, no, this is my favorite party, and this is my favorite character.
It changes depending on whoever the last person we played as is always my favorite party.
Completely. Our last group, and that shows up in episode 3, is called the McCalls. And they're called the McCalls because that's all of their last names, because they are all related, but they kind of have a special kinship. And I think I want to start with me and Maddie and then save Nate's character for last. Just so, I mean, if you've been listening, you know what the character is, but if this is your first time listening, I like the punchline of Nate's character. So, Maddie, why don't you start with your character since you're the oldest?
So I play Enid McCall, who is a very outspoken dwarf lady barbarian. She kicks ass, takes names if they're cute though, but normally makes it a point to not.
And she's all out of bubblegum.
And she's all out of bubblegum. So she is just a fiery little rocket, and I think she's like all of my repressed southernness in a character, because you're raised in the South and you're always told like you're dumb, so you're from the South, and you're like, oh, I'm not dumb.
Yeah, and then you meet people from other places and you're like, oh, I'm dumb.
Well, the first thing to go is the accent.
Yeah.
And everything else follows suit. And so this is like me reclaiming my southernness. She's also kind of modeled after like the typical tomboy, like redneck girl that I went to high school with, who was like super cool and chill. And if any of you have never been to high school in the South, they always have a can of dip in their back pocket. But that I don't think Enid dips yet. Anyway, so I just kind of modeled her after those girls from high school, and they were always like really badass, and they were like, oh, I had to feed all the chickens this morning, and I tended the cows. I was up at like 3:30 this morning. I'm like, wow, I struggled to get out of bed at 7:30. Like, they were so cool. They had their shit together way before anybody else. And that's kind of like Enid in a way. Feisty, fiery dwarf barbarian.
Very much in that vein, my character is named Boot McCall and is Enid's younger brother. And Boot is very much in the way. So I grew up here in South Carolina. I grew up in a little old town called Walhalla. And
Valley of the Gods.
Mm-hmm. So Boot McCall, Enid's younger brother, what I found to him is like he is very much he is all of my southernness packed into one little guy, and also a redhead. He has the dwarven beard. He keeps his hair is long but keeps it tied up in a man bun. He is ex-dwarven military, and that's why he wears heavy armor, even though he is not proficient in wearing heavy armor because he's a ranger.
He's the worst ranger in the world.
I mean, I wouldn't say he's the worst. I wouldn't say he's the worst ranger in the world, but I would definitely say he's not the best ranger in the world. And what I have found is that he is very much dependent on his older sister to keep him out of trouble that he tends to find himself into, not on purpose. I feel like he gets himself into a lot of accidental trouble. And Enid, he tends to run to Enid to save his ass.
I think it's more of like he's like, oh, I gotta help. And then he'll get himself in these kind of situations that Enid will have to clean up.
Yeah.
But I don't think he purposefully gets in trouble. I don't think that's the intention. I think he's just too big for his boots.
Yeah, no pun intended. No
pun intended.
Oh, okay.
No, pun was intended.
Pun was definitely intended.
Pun was intended.
And that's Boot. He's I don't know what else to say about him except I love being Boot. I don't know. It's just I think I love how goofy he is. With Boot, I feel like I think the least, and it's just very much like, oh, here we go. I'm gonna do it. Here's my first thought. That's what I'm gonna do. All right, here we go.
I definitely feel that way, and I think that our interactions as Boot and Enid and Nate's character that he will introduce are just so natural because I think they just come from a really personal place. It's just, obviously we mean like the most adoration for these people that we base them off of.
Oh yeah, of course.
Because we're not like making fun of rednecks, like,
oh yeah, we are rednecks.
But it's like everyone's a little bit redneck down here. And we are just kind of playing off of all of our repressed redneckness. I don't know. It's just fun. They're just fun people.
So we have Boot and Enid, dwarven siblings, and it brings us to our final character.
I am playing Gretchen McCall, who is Boot and Enid's half-orc grandmother. She's known throughout the community as Ma, and mostly to Boot and Enid, but she's kind of a werewolf hunter, problem solver. She's got that old granny, but also a granny with a shotgun kind of vibe, like she's rocking on the front porch, but you don't want to walk up to that front porch unless she knows who you are. She's tough as nails and actually found Boot and Enid when a hunt went wrong and they lost their parents. And she had recently also kind of suffered a loss and decided to take them under her wing and raise them as her own. And that's kind of, I think, they are her children or her grandchildren. Either way, it's not like a formal adoption or anything like that. It's all, she raised these kids and she's their Ma. But not just them. I think she's kind of like a community figure as Ma. She's always been, when people have issues or struggles, they'll go and ask Ma for advice. She's wise, she's old, she's been around. She hasn't always made the best choices though, and that's something she's kind of learning from and she's paying for. Because as you'll see, she's a pact warlock with she's an abyssal pact, so she's has a little bit of a hellish flair to her, and I'm sure some more of that will come up and more of that will be seen. But she's taking care of her kids first, obviously, her community second, and herself last, and that's kind of Ma's whole thing.
Yeah, I think Ma is, like, going back to what you're saying, how she's like a community mother. I feel like she's a matriarch in every niche that she fills. She is the matriarch. Mm-hmm. Matriarch of the family, the matriarch of the community.
Yes.
She's not an elected official, but like a unofficial community leader. Just someone who gets shit done.
She may not be a politician, but if she goes and knocks on that politician's door and talks to them about an issue, that issue is going to get solved.
Yeah.
And if you want to get elected in the town, you have to, if Ma has your vote, or if you have Ma's vote, then you have the town's vote. That kind of, she's an unofficial leader. She doesn't want the power of being a leader. She's not looking for the power. She's not looking for the glory of it. I think she's Ma.
Yeah, Mal, for sure.
I think it's just a natural leadership that comes from being wise from your age.
Yeah.
Like just the elder type.
Yeah, and the McCalls, Ma has taught and passed on some hunting traditions, so it's not uncommon for the McCalls to go out and go hunting together. You know, there's lots of knolls in the area and in and around Cinder, where kind of they hail from.
Not to mention the werewolf problem.
Dude, talking about them werewolves.
Also, they are from Traveler's Rest. What are you talking about? We only go to Cinder when we being fancy.
I mean, Traveler's Rest is more or less halfway between Greenville and Asheville anyway. So.
That's true. That's true.
We're going up to Cinder for when it's Enid's birthday and she wants to go to one of them fancy taco wagons, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But Verde's too fancy and it's too close.
Oh, Verde's been getting
too expensive.
It's too ritzy, and the people moving there lately, there's too much of city folk.
Mm-hmm.
Too expensive.
Too expensive.
I still want some of that charm, that rustic charm that comes from Cinder.
Yeah.
You know all about that, Ma.
Oh, listen. Yeah, Miles, let's just say her hellish rebuke's not the only flame she's had in her days.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps up all of our characters. Andy, is there anything that we're missing?
I think that's mostly it. I mean, I think that gives us the basis we need to get started. We're moving on through a pretty exciting adventure, and oh man, we've got big things in store.
Yeah. So as we're recording this now, we are approximately 3-ish sessions away from the big bag boss man coming down the leg, and I know we're really excited.
That's my best guess. Yeah. We don't tend to be the most focused group though. So if there's a shiny object, we may totally wander off.
Like some type of sexy treasure or something.
Exactly right. If there's some sexy treasure that comes up, that's a whole episode by itself.
How sexy was it? Yeah.
I mean, there was mud wrestling. That's sexy to some people.
Yeah, and also very Southern.
Like to Will Ferrell in Old School. Yes.
That a boy blue.
Ah, boy, blue.
That's like wrestling and mudding combined, isn't it?
Yes.
Two very Southern hobbies.
Yeah. Some would say it's mud wrestling. Yeah. So if you're listening to Session 0 and this is your first time listening, give the first episode a try. If you don't like that episode, try the second episode. Completely different. If you don't like that episode, try the third one. Also completely different. If you don't like the third episode, our show may not be for you, unfortunately. But we think it is. We're having so much fun. We've been having a blast. There's lots of laughs in the show. Give us a follow on our social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube by searching Blue Ridge Adventures Guild. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter by searching @BragPod. That's BRAGPOD. And give us a rate and review and wherever you're listening to your podcast right now. It really helps us out. It gives us a lot of exposure and it lets us know how we're doing. And that's all I have. Anybody else?
We love you. Thank you for your support so far and continue to support us if you want.
Yeah, thanks for everybody listening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Mwah.